every time somebody comes out and sees our property that's an entrepreneur, they're like, what you need to do is you need to take this and leverage it and double your output. And I'm like, hold up.
I didn't even want to do this again.
Yes, I'm a very happy camper right now. It's covering all of its costs plus some. We're okay. And yeah, you can upscale, but the question is always, but why? Hey, well, welcome back to the Malm podcast, where we help people conquer their mountains. Folks call in, share what they're working through, and we do our best to help them figure out their next steps. This week, I got to talk to Jason. He's a small business owner, and his business is seeing a lot of success, but he called in with a question of, should I grow my business? Do I need to be growing my business? Is that the responsible thing to do to keep growing my business? So we talked about where he was in life and the challenges he faced in balancing time and also balancing family and work and just everything that a small business owner deals with. So if you have a struggle in your own life of figuring out how to get the most out of your time and find balance, I think you might find this episode really helpful. With that said, if you've got a question you're working through, some mountain you're trying to conquer, I would love to help you take your next steps. You can sign up for coaching at joelmalm.com/coaching. There's a link right here on the screen, and I'd love to talk with you. In the meantime, I hope you enjoy this week's episode. What's up, Jason, my brother? How are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. What do we want to work on today?
So you had asked for me to put together a bottom line up front. And when I originally submitted this, it was, I want to build my business, right? I mean, we're a small cabinet company. I've been doing this kind of work for 17 years now. I worked for actually a guy that attends our church, across the church, Jeff Meckel, for almost 11 years. And so in 2020, it came time to start my own thing. And there was no better time than right before a pandemic and everybody fear for their lives. So, we just kind of jumped in and started it, and things have been good over the last 5 years. But you just naturally, progressively want to grow the business, become better, become bigger, make more money, provide for your family. But in that time, I've taken on other endeavors, such as joining our city council. And so after submitting that initial question of, I want to build the business, it's kind of come to my attention that I feel like I'm kind of being pulled in different directions sometimes, right? Because my focus, is, hey, I want to help and serve. And of course, Jackie and I, we do all kinds of community events. What's that?
Was that Metallica?
Yeah, it actually is. Yeah, that's my ringtone.
Okay.
Yeah, Metallica 1. You can't get it.
Yeah, that's right.
No, but
so you got, okay, just to clarify. Yeah. So you're on city council, right?
City council here in Seguin.
Yep. What does that require of you time-wise?
And it differs. It really does differ, right? Some weeks are not crazy at all. Other weeks take a little bit more study, depending on what the agenda items that are coming up, different events around town. Sometimes there's nothing for weeks. Other times it's back to back to back, and you're, juggling family and in your responsibilities and the things that you signed up for. It does vary. Yeah. And it's not really seasonal. It just kind of happens. So
do you feel like that responsibility is limiting your business's growth capacity at all?
I know it is, for sure, right? Because instead of being 100% focused on the business, right? Growing the business, just focusing there, right? It does divert the focus. And I would say the dilemma is something that I'm passionate about, Jackie's passionate about, right? We feel it's something that we're called to do as a family, right? She might not be serving on the city council, but she shows up to school board meetings, right? We homeschool our kids. And so we don't have a vested interest necessarily in what happens in the district. However, our tax dollars do go there, and we do feel that it's our responsibility to stand up for injustice as we see it. We're pulled in many directions, but we feel we're called to do that.
So what do you feel when you're looking at your, obviously time is the most important asset. It took me a while to realize that, but I hung out with a bunch of rich guys, and I realized one day that they told me, they're like, money's not the big deal. Time is the big deal, because you can always make more money. You can't make more time. And I thought, man, what if I shifted my mindset to look at time as the most important asset? And I realized how much of my time is focused on making money, but really the key is, how do you make more time? So what do you think is going to be required to take your business to the next level? And also, what are we evaluating the next level on? Is it an income level? Is it amount of freedom level? Start with the end in mind. Like, when would you be like?
End in mind, it's really being able to work more on my business than in my business is where I eventually want to get. However, being a small business, right, overhead, it costs money to hire employees. It costs money to buy the materials to do the work, right? So you do have to work in the business now. And again, like I said, just juggling that calling that we have with the want and desire to grow the business, it kind of feels like we do have to kind of put on back burner. I mean, we've built a great product, right? And so I definitely don't want to see that suffer.
Yeah.
So it's just trying to maintain that sense of balance right now, and it's
So
kind of hard sometimes.
you want to grow.
Yep.
You want to find balance. You also feel this tremendous calling to be involved in the local city council and serving the community that way. Any other pieces that are, that's 3 balls there.
Yeah.
Any other
Yeah.
piece, any other ball in the juggling mix?
I mean, just being there for my family at the same time.
A couple more
You
years and
know,
they might be out the
yeah,
door.
they're very active in their endeavors and the things that they're passionate about, right? And you also need to make sure you're there for your family, right? You don't want to
Yeah.
neglect that, and that's the most important thing, really, above all this other stuff, right? Is my family,
So
and we do very much prioritize them over other things.
that's good, which is one of the beauties of
Yeah,
having your own business is my friend always jokes. He says, the nice thing about being self-employed is you can make as little money as you want to.
exactly.
So if this was your time, this is like 18, say you've got 18 waking hours in the day, right? Maybe 16. Let's say you got 16 hours in a day. What percentage of that time right now, if we were to do a pie chart, what percentage of that time is spent on work right now? 16 hours of the day. And obviously that change when you're self-employed, it depends on the day.
Yeah. On work, 6 to 7.
Okay.
Nice hard hours, right? Between, obviously office things that you have to do, but being out in the shop, working, talking to clients, things like that, a good 6 hours, 7 hours. And then of course there's the caveat that if, there is a more labor intensive council agenda, which this last one had a few things on there that I had to do some homework that ends up sacrificing a day's worth of work sometimes.
Oh, so you
To
might end up dedicating a full day of a
Oh
5
yeah.
work day to okay.
Yeah, and again, we meet every 2 weeks, right? First and third Tuesday. But there are some days, even you do what you can on the weekends, right? Dedicating your time to these agendas. But if you need to speak to department heads about certain things, right? Meetings and things
Yeah.
like that, sometimes it just takes a little time. It's not all the time, but
So would
this
it
week
be
happened to be there.
all right? So if you said 2 hours a day spread out over a week, is that accurate?
If even that sometimes, right? Because sometimes it's just shooting off a couple emails 15 minutes a day, right? Other day, it varies so greatly. So I would maybe, if I'm just trying to break it down, an hour to 2 a week max, super max, all in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm seeing is about 10 of your 16 hours. That's probably not an accurate pie chart, but about 10 of your 16 hours is occupied there. So the rest of the 6, in theory, is for family. What are other obligations that take your time during a day?
So Jackie and I both are very much into health and wellness, right?
Okay.
As much fitness as we can be, right? Healthy eating. We try not to eat out and eat junk, eat McDonald's, all these things, right?
So you're
So,
doing food
there is
prep
that.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, you got to eat at home, which takes a little bit more time to cook and things like that. But one of the things that I do is there's a program, it's a mental toughness program, and it goes right along with this entire conversation. It's called 75 Hard, right? And it requires you to do 2 dedicated exercises for 45 minutes every day for the 75 days. They have to be separated, right? So every morning I wake up, right now I'm waking up at 5 a.m. I'm doing my devotional and going through some emails and things like that first thing in the morning for about an hour. And then I ruck
Okay.
for 45 minutes to an hour. And that's what I
Wow.
do in the morning. After work, I do another 45-minute workout. And then I'll do an ice bath after that, kind of, recoup. But it requires me to read, minimum of 10 pages daily, water intake, a gallon of water intake. So it's these things that you are having to kind of keep track of what you're eating and things. So
That's
making
so
sure
that's a
that
good
thing.
2 hours of daily commitment.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Plus all that water, you're going to be peeing at what, every 27 minutes? Just kidding.
Every hour and a half, once
Yeah.
that seal breaks, in the morning, right? It's at every hour or so.
So that's 12 hours right there of stuff. And so that leaves you 4 hours with the family. Is that about accurate? 4 hours y'all are together hanging out?
Feels about right. That feels about
Okay.
right because, in the evenings, of course, if the kids have their activities, right, you're running them. And then you can kind of take that sitting around time at Jackson's baseball for, hey, that's when I'm going to read or that's when I'm going to do some of my other stuff,
Yeah.
that I need to do.
So
Again, some of that stuff is self development, learning. So, hey, Chat GPT, teach me XYZ.
yeah. So there are no solutions. There are only trade-offs for the biggest challenges of life, and time of is one of them. There's no solutions. There's only trade-offs. So right here, what I'm showing is you've got kind of your full time here, your work. So basically, if you had to give up something here, what would you want to take time away from? Work, workout, family, or the council stuff?
It's like Sophie's Choice, right? I mean, because we're passionate about all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's hard. It's usually it's not the bad stuff that takes us out. It's too much of the good stuff.
Yeah, and we tend to fill our time with,
Yeah.
stuff. Anyways, I definitely would not sacrifice any of the family time,
Okay.
for sure, because that's already kind of the smaller portion there. I think if I prioritize my time a little bit better, I could probably whittle down some of that council time throughout the week, maybe not spend as much time doing a couple of those little things. I might overexert myself a little bit there, to be more available than some, but I feel that, when you throw your name in the hat, and say, yes, I will be available, then you should make yourself available, right?
Yeah.
And I do understand that there is a limitation, right? That, hey, I
Yeah.
can't show up to everything. I can't be everywhere. And also understanding that.
So let's do this. What if we focused on how to maximize a little bit more of your work time? You
Okay.
think that might help? Because that's a
Probably.
big chunk of it. That's half your day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Pareto principle says that 20% of your inputs create 80% of your outputs. So it's called the 80-20 rule. And I saw it in my life when I was realizing I don't have enough time in the day to do everything I want. So I started looking and saying, what is the 20% I input? So Wilfredo Pareto, who was an economist in Italy, and he discovered that 20% of his pea plants produce 80% of his crops, right? And then he saw that 20% of Italy or 80% of Italy was owned by 20% of people. And so he started seeing this principle everywhere. In churches, about 20% of people tithe, and that funds 80% of the operation. So you see it everywhere. And what I realized in my business, what I do, I was like, okay, what's the 20% I do that creates the 80% return? Because there's a ton of stuff I do. And what I realized is it's when I create content that it opens the most doors for me. So when I do videos, podcasts, write books, stuff I write, gets me speaking gigs, gets me coaching gigs. A lot of the people I've been coaching, I'm like, how'd you find me? They're like, something you wrote. So for me, it's the stuff I write that creates it. That's the 20%. So what I realized is if that's the truth, how do I give my best time to that? And I realized that in a 16-hour day, about 3.5 hours ends up being 20% of that time. So what I've found is in the morning, if I can focus in the early morning, about 3 hours of creating content, great results for me. There's always stuff I don't want to do and I'm not the best at. But what I'm really good at is creating content, and content is what generates income. It's what generates opportunities. That's my 20%. And when I talk to business leaders, I say, what's the 20% you do at the current state of your business that is going to create the most revenue? And for some guys, it's going and drumming up more business. For some, it's honing in on their craft even more and training somebody alongside with them. I was working with a carpenter the other day, and he said that. He's like, I'm at the point now where I'm just going to have to dedicate the time to train somebody. He's like, it's frustrating because it takes so long to train them.
Right.
But once they're trained, you've basically doubled your output. And there's stuff he's kind of a master carpenter like you, like really an artist. And he's like, there's some stuff I won't be able to hand off, but all the other stuff, if I hand it off to him, it'll actually double my output. So in terms of the 20% you do that creates the most results, what do you find? Is it that you're out finding new clients, customers, or is it you doing the actual work, or where's that at for you?
It would probably be in the actual work, right? Our lead generation works really well. We've got great word of mouth. I can't really remember last time I was out trying to drum up work. It kind of comes to us because of what we've done in the past and the quality of what we've done and references from other clients. I mean, we've get so many return clients, 2, 3, 4 time return clients because they know the quality. So that would definitely not be what it was. I would definitely say being in the shop and doing the work. So like you said,
The craftsmanship
raising
stuff
up that
is
next.
yeah. What's going to be required to train somebody? Like what elements of what you do could be offloaded where you're like, this takes up time, but I don't have to do it.
Having somebody properly trained in the systems and procedures the way we do it, right? It's not, there's nothing cookie cutter necessarily about the way we build. So there's a dynamic involved in every, job there's nothing the same, right? I mean, you have
Yeah.
similarities, of course, right? But to be able to, train somebody up to, hey, mimic the way we do it. And then I would make sure that they understand the reason behind why we take the little details and make them so important, right? It's all these little if you shoot a nail out the bottom of the cabinet, right, nobody will ever see it when you install it. However, it's the principle behind it, right? It's like, hey, that's not right. Let's go ahead and repair that, even though it doesn't really in the long scheme matter. So
Right.
it's being able to teach that, hey, details matter, not necessarily for the end result, but more for, the principle and for you.
Yeah. Now, have you had anybody working alongside you in the past, or have you been a solo operation most of these last 4, 5,
No,
6 years?
we've had some people come and go. My brother worked with us for quite a while, and he was really that guy, but he had different passions, and so it was time for him to move on. But he understood the reason why, and it was kind of, hey, I've got to go do this. You could walk away, and everything would still proceed. So it's just
Yeah.
training up, finding that person and training them up.
What things did your brother do that really helped you keep focused on your 20%?
Being able to output productively and to the high standard that's required.
Okay. So he
Right,
kept up with
because
standards. What kind of
100%.
actual physical labor did he take away from what you had to do?
The building process, right? The
Okay.
cutting out, the things like that, right? I mean, we have upgraded since then with the CNC machine, right? And it does a lot of the work for us. So that would take away from that skill if having to run the table saw and some of these other, piece of equipment, but it's still from that point.
So one of the keys in leadership is only you do what only you can do
Right.
as best as possible, which when you're a small business owner, it's like you're everything, man. You're
Yeah.
marketing. So would you say is the thing only you can do? And then if you were to create a job description for what you're doing right now that you're like, if I trained somebody, they could do that. I don't have to be doing that. What are some of those, like the things you do, but the things that you could offload?
I would say I'm looking for somebody that can run and operate the workings of a cabinet shop efficiently. I
Okay.
can build to a high standard without compromise,
Okay.
and somebody that can lead, right? Because we do have a couple other guys in here, good shop hands. They're quality. They show up and they do the hard work. That's just not the position that they're in, right?
Yeah.
It's
Are
just
any of those
not what they're
guys
suited for.
Do any of those guys have the desire or the capacity to step up to a more responsibility role? Or are they always kind of going to be like, we're like where we're
Yeah,
at?
no, our main guy, he's great. I love him to death. I mean, I wouldn't trade him for the world, but that's just not where,
He's not interested in
that's
that.
just not what he would do, right? It's
Yeah.
just not in his deck of cards. And the other guy is actually Hayden. He's going off to be an EMT, and so right now we're just a place filler for him. He needs some work. He has a general background in doing, some of these things,
Yeah.
and so it's like, hey, we can use him. We can use the extra hand, but that's not his passion, right?
So if he takes off and you had a little bit more resources to replace him, would you want to replace him with somebody doing the same thing as him? Or are you going to look for somebody that's going to step more into the shop
I
management
would, I
role?
would, I would definitely want to start looking, into
Yeah.
somebody that can,
Shop man. Is that what a
yeah,
good title would be for it? You think like shop manager or something like that? Or what's a title for
yeah,
that?
maybe like shop superintendent, something along those lines. Somebody, something that holds a little bit of weight, right? Like, hey, you are important here. That something along those lines. That it's like, hey, you're an all-encompassing kind of
Yeah.
position.
Are you doing most of the customer interactions right now?
Oh
Like
yeah,
when the initial
yeah.
call comes in?
Yeah, and so if a call comes in, I deal with that. Emails, Jackie deals with that a lot. We kind of do a little back and forth there. Whenever it comes to any of the bidding process, I'm the guy that goes on site. I meet with the clients. I do all the bid.
And does that take away from getting the work done at the shop when you're
It
gone?
does at times. It does at
Yeah.
times. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, you're pulled away.
Yeah. So in some
There's always
ways,
something to
you're
do.
going to need to grow to the next level. You're going to kind of want to shift. Obviously, for the customer interaction, do you feel like that's something you would ever want to outsource? Or do you like, no, I need to be the person talking directly to the customer because I need to know exactly what they want output wise?
I think for now, for sure.
Okay.
I think over time, maybe you could see something like that as things grow and develop. You could see, that handing off eventually.
Yeah. But for now, you feel like you need to be that person.
I think so.
Okay.
At
So
least that's how I feel.
so then definitely we need to lean into somebody that's going to be able to keep the shop running while you're out giving quotes, taking
Right.
calls, stepping out of the room to take a call and do a quote or whatever.
Yeah, and it kind of popped in my head right now. One of the things that has always been kind of a hesitation of mine to hire, just, you don't want to hire anybody and everybody, is our shop is, it's not, hey, let's come to this business complex, right? It is a shop behind our home. We homeschool our kids. Our kids are here. I don't know you. I can't trust you. I've got kids
Yeah.
running around, right? It's kind of like,
So you need a
there's always
very
this
specific,
hesitation there.
yeah, you need a person if you're going to keep it where it's at.
Right. And then, of course, the convenience of, hey, we own the shop currently, right? Okay, now if we move, there's another, there's some dollars, going out and
Yeah.
all these kinds of the new overhead involved and all the stuff. So
Yeah. So it kind of comes to a point where you're like,
small business dynamic, right?
yeah. And, yes, you almost decide, do we intentionally limit our growth so that we can keep things in, which I don't think there's any. I talk to a lot of pastors that are in that situation. They're like, our church is just growing too fast. And I'm like, I used to think that the thing to do is if God is bringing you people, you lean into that and you have to do whatever it takes to sacrifice for that.
Mhm.
And now I'm kind of like, I don't know. I think the Lord honors us going, as long as it's not out of fear, right?
Right.
But if you're saying based on my values, like I want my kids at home, I love having them there,
Yeah.
I'm going to have to throttle the business for a little while. Because this is what's most important right now. And that's the constant tension I think we feel of, limits, right?
Right.
You can do anything, but you can't do everything.
And the way you're saying that now too is kind of, my mind is kind of just kind of churning a little bit too, right? And you just sit there and you read and, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that, right? I mean, we have a roof over our head. We're happy. Things are good. I mean, business is great. Don't get me wrong. We're booking out to September right now, right? So it's not like we're hurting for business that, oh no, we don't have enough things to do,
Yeah.
but you're always like, things are going well. So you're like, you assume the next thing is, I've got to grow, right? Versus, hey, maybe we're okay where we're at. And in God's time, once he says, you know what, hey, some of these extracurricular activities that you and Jackie are doing, maybe it's time to pull back from those, or hey, mission accomplished. God bless you guys. You did great. Now go and focus on this other thing because you've established, the reputation. So again, it's what do
And
you
you
do?
may
You want to, as a human, as an American, I want to grow my business, pick myself up by my bootstraps. But yeah.
Yeah. And you may say, okay, we're going to throttle until the kids are out of the house, right? Everything's good. We got the time, we got the money. I've seen a lot of guys like that where they say, I intentionally turned down the promotion because I knew it was going to take away from the last 5 years I had with my kid at home or whatever. And
we
then
just
once,
had that exact situation with one of the guys at a commissioner's court. It was re-election time. He's like, I need to be with my kids right now. This critical time in their lives with them, growing up, it's more important than,
yeah.
Being on commissioner's court.
And when you make that right sacrifice, I've seen over and over again, God kind of brings things back to life in a more glorious form oftentimes. Yeah. I've worked with business guys who spent all this time building something and then they were like going to hand it over to their kid and their kid wants nothing to do with them because they've been at work his whole childhood. Yeah. But then I've also seen guys who say they pulled back, but as their child got older, they started incorporating them more into the business. And now their kids are running the business and killing it and taking them to a level they never could have. So again, it all depends on your values. Like what's your greatest value? And I know for our property, every time somebody comes out and sees our property that's an entrepreneur, they're like, what you need to do is you need to take this and leverage it and double your output. And I'm like, hold up. I
didn't even want to do this again.
Yes, I'm a very happy camper right now. It's covering all of its costs plus some. We're okay. And yeah, you can upscale, but the question is always, but why? And it's like, maybe if that's in line with your values, but if you really, where there is no vision, the people dwell without restraint. When you don't know where you're trying to get to, you dwell without restraint. You just do whatever and you just keep adding and adding and adding. But perfection is attained. One of my favorite quotes. Perfection is attained not when there's nothing more to add, but when there's nothing more to subtract. So you're looking at your life and you're going, if you want to grow the business, but you may want to do it, you say, I'm not going to grow the business at the cost of compromising who my employees are. So you say, Lord, it's where we, as Christians, I believe the Lord needs to be in everything we do, but this is one of those ways you go, Lord, I would love to expand the business, but I'm not going to do it until you bring me the right person. And if I get the right person, I guess that's our sign. If I don't, we're just going to keep trucking along right here, because it sounds like you obviously, you always need some room to tweak and stuff, but it sounds like you're kind of on track with how you're balancing everything. You're doing a bunch of stuff you love. You've kind of eliminated, I'm sure there's parts of the business you'd rather not have to do, which you could outsource some of that, maybe bookkeeping and stuff. Well, you got Jackie. She can help.
Yeah, I mean, Jackie does all that stuff. The things that I hate doing, she likes doing. So,
there it is.
Out.
It's a great combo.
And you know, she does these things well, right?
So I think, it sounds to me like you're actually in a good spot. Well, no, it sounds like you're in a good spot. You've just got to decide, Jackie got to decide, what are our values and what's our next step based on our values. And if you do feel like you don't have the time, then, what can be sacrificed, what can be changed. Right. If you feel like, I don't know, if you feel like the Lord is telling you, grow your business now. I've had guys that are like, I know I've got to grow my business right now. Like there's this window. Then you figure out, what do you sacrifice in the meantime that's not going to be long-term regret? Because I've talked with a lot of guys that built their business and now their family is just in shambles, right? And it's tough, man. It's tough to balance that sometimes. But what do you think, what's your kind of gut instinct on where you want to go from that?
So, you just said, if God's telling you, man, you need to grow your business, right? I don't feel that that's like God pulling me like, oh man, you need to dive into this thing like crazy, right? This is just something that I just feel like I naturally need to do is, hey, I want to provide more for my family. Yeah, it's just a natural progression of a business owner, I suppose. I feel that me doing what I'm doing for the community is a righteous cause, right? I really do. And I feel that, we need good quality Christian representation, at the local level, right? Yeah. I mean, local touches every single person. As much as you can sit there and gripe about federal and state things, you call them up, they don't listen to you, right? But you call your local people, hey, guess what? That's your neighbor. They tend to listen to you more. The actions happen quicker at the local level, and things that, will affect your day-to-day life. And I feel like that's something that I'm supposed to be doing right now. So I don't know if necessarily having to devote more time, because I feel the time I am devoting is sufficient, but just making sure I stay focused, and not lose track of, hey, I still need to provide for my family.
Yeah. So if that's your clientele and you're going to say, I want to keep at the pace I'm going, but there's no room for expansion, I don't have the staff right now to expand, then you just raise the prices and a little bit. And again, don't get greedy, right?
Yeah,
I don't think you're going to get greedy.
Yeah, but no, that's not my thing.
Yeah, I don't agree. And it sounds like the Lord is already blessing it. And that's what I tell guys that start construction businesses. I'm like, if you do a couple good jobs, referrals alone are going to keep you busy, because we're all 100%. Looking for somebody 100%. To do good work for us.
Good quality reviews on Google, and
So, and it sounds like you're there. I mean, you've been responsible. You've done good work. You've managed it. So it sounds like you're there. It's just kind of a decision of, is it time to grow? And if it's, again, I don't think God judges us if we say, I'm living in line with the values that I feel are most important right now. I'm going to make this sacrifice. And I think that's the right sacrifice when it has anything to do with your family or your spouse. Like, I think that's the right sacrifice, because it's, those priorities are
100%.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're on track, and you just kind of got to, what you're going to have to do is resist all those driven people that are going to be like, you need to upscale and blah, 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 expand your business. And you go, right now, we're where we want to be. It'd be nice to get a little more income. But if you want to do it that way, you just raise a little bit of prices, or find alternate ways here and there. But it would stink for you to expand at the cost of what you've got. It sounds like you've got a really good thing going right now.
No.
So, yeah.
I think you're right.
Thoughts?
No, I mean, that's great advice for sure.
I'm definitely not your double, triple your output guy. I'm not that guy.
I wasn't really looking for that. I don't think either, but just.
Yeah. Wealth has a lot of different measurements, and you got to figure out what's most important to you. And every person I've ever talked to that's gotten money and lost their family wasn't worth it.
Not worth it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. 100%. And definitely wouldn't be worth it to me. I guarantee that.
Yeah.
Guarantee it.